Hello, this is Tony Hall, Anthony James Hall. I'm here in Lethbridge, Alberta, 40 miles north of the U.S. border, 40 miles north of Montana, in Alberta, Canada, where there's a considerable kerfuffle going on about independence movement within Alberta. I'm kind of close to that, but that's not the topic for today. The topic today is turning the page on the global war on terror. You may have noticed that in the Middle East, what they call West Asia in some circles, there has been a war. USA and Israel have joined together. Israel kind of emerged from Gaza and its notorious genocide against people of Gaza and people in the West Bank, then widen it out into an attack on the Lebanese state. Hezbollah is close to a country called Iran. And so there is a war underway, the latest part of which started on February 28th. And basically, this has been a lead up to this for decades, really. And the government and people and country of Israel, the Israeli entity, as some call it, they want to obliterate, to dismantle, to change its form, to maybe balkanize, to tear it up into pieces and disable the country of Iran, which goes back to a place called Persia. It's a civilizational country. And so the effort has been to put the U.S. government out front, which has a great big military, which has lots of military, diplomatic, financial clout in a way, and have the United States be the battering ram for Israel. It's really Israel that wants the disappearance of Iran so that they can have their greater Israel, their expanded Israel. And of course, this concept of getting a little beachhead in what is now the Israel area and then expanding from there. This goes back before the creation of Israel in 1948. It goes back to Jabotinsky, to the people who were debating within Israel whether they should form a nation state, a country in the Holy Land. And as it turned out that Benjamin Netanyahu, the current prime minister, his father, worked with Jabotinsky, they say, as his secretary. And so this idea of expanding Israel and Israel's influence in the world, this has been very front and center. President Donald Trump has taken this up. So finally, Israel and Netanyahu is getting its chance to make war on Iran. But Iran turns out to be quite a different place than the stereotypes, than the way that Iran has been depicted as kind of, they don't do anything there except conceive how to do terrorism day in and day out towards Westerners. This has been part of the Israeli propaganda, but it turns out it's a very disciplined country with 1/100th of the budget of the USA. This is the overall budget of the Defense Department in the USA. They have essentially put USA on the run. They have a very disciplined approach to specializing in certain weapons, especially ballistic missiles, having their whole arsenal and all their operations underground, under mountains, within mountains, within caves, within mountains. And they have demonstrated a tremendous ability to essentially outclass United States, which is the big part of the military, and Israel as well. And Israel is being beat up and clobbered with ballistic missile strikes, doesn't have the capacity to fend off these strikes very much because the arsenal, the equipment just isn't there to continue as it's been going. So we're going to look at this uh, case, the turning point on the war on terror. Remember that Iran was one of three countries mentioned at the beginning of what they call the War on Terror. Back in September 11 of 2001, there was a what was portrayed to be a plane attack on the Twin Towers, then a third tower. Uh, Building 7 fell down on September the 11th. There was a hit on the Pentagon. At first, they said, well, where's the plane? Where's the evidence of the plane hitting the Pentagon? We know that in 20, 2001, there was an event, huge event, that changed the nature of the world, shocked everybody. It made everybody extremely frightened of Islamic terrorists. And so the war on terror was basically directed in the early instances at Islamic countries. There was a declaration that there is a axis of evil composed of three countries, Iraq, North Korea, and Iran. So back in 2001, Iran was declared as sort of the pinnacle of this structure of evil, of terror. And in a way, what has been going on now, I see that as a sort of the culmination, that this is where it led, uh, turning minds against Muslims. And of course, what really happened on 9/11, we can get into the fact that it isn't at all as it was portrayed, a sort of independent group of Muslim people come together. They find a leader in Afghanistan, in the caves of Afghanistan, and they somehow organize this event, which essentially defeats the U.S. military at its peak, that it takes down buildings, it hits the Pentagon, it uh, takes over planes, and hijackers do this and do that. What if a 9/11 was not that? And it can't really be that, because there's just no way that there was an independent Muslim force with the capacity, with the planning, with the resources to do what we were told happened if they didn't do 9/11, if Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda, as we were told the first day of that era, when the Twin Towers were being hit, and then the Building 7 and Pentagon and more to it than that as well. If they didn't do it, who did do it? Well, to me, it's quite clear that Zionism, the Zionist construct linking the United States and Israel, the United States and Israel have sort of become the same place, the same country when it comes to militarism. We could definitely see when Trump finally got in, when Muriel Adelson and his big donors were all Zionists, and he shares with Netanyahu this Zionist identity. Now, what is Zionism? We use that word all the time, but rather than thinking of this as a 9/11 as a somehow between Israel and the United States, let's imagine this Zionist complex of people in power, rich people, people with a big say in banking, people with a big say in media. Let's say that this whole project of 9/11, it had a psychological objective to cause people to be suspicious and hate and accept the idea that we would have to reorganize society for a global war on terror. And so it seems to me that this is the moment where we're seeing actually the roles are kind of reversed, because it's quite clear under the circumstances right now that the terrorists are Israel and the United States. That they made war on Iran. It wasn't a provoked war. Iran wasn't attacking them. They came and, 3 times now have picked up a war, and somehow Netanyahu has manipulated Trump into being at the front of this. Of course, the United States has to be at the front of this because Iran is a formidable country. It's a very educated population, obviously. It's draws on the heritage of this ancient civilization called Persia, and it's a big country and it's resource-rich country. But of course, Israel has been leading the charge to force the USA into putting sanctions on Iran, and so this attack on Iran, grows out of a deep-rooted place. So that's why I'm going to get into history on all of this, and I am getting into history and trying to talk about this, in a way to make it accessible. Now, when I say history, people tend to think, "Oh my God, dates, run for the hills. I don't want to memorize dates." Well, there is a need to know something about what happened before. I look at history as kind of, there's the past dimension of history, what happened in the past, which is the classic way that we think of it. But there's also the history that we are making right now. Every moment, history is unfolding, and as we're living our lives, we're trying to understand, what's going on. And things happen, and maybe things happen and they don't have names. I think that's what we're kind of in now, where we don't have names for things that are happening. And then there is the future. History will unfold, continue to unfold in the future. And how we, think about the present is going to control a lot about what happens in the future. So that's the approach we're going to take. And it seems to me that if you don't get the story right at the time, like we didn't get the story right in 2001 when 9/11 happened, we were basically lied to. It was a misrepresentation. It was called what they call a false flag. We were told it was Muslims and Arabs, but no, it was Muslims and Arabs, and may have been involved in different ways, but as patsies, as assets, as mercenaries. But the main momentum to do this, the main concept, the main planning to do this, this comes out of a Zionist contingent based in Israel and the United States, based on high level geopolitical players in society who have a lot of power in banking, in media. They can sort of twist the perception of reality to meet what they planned. And what they planned are wars in Muslim majority countries. In 2001, we hadn't yet, we, the people of the West, hadn't yet hit Iraq, for instance, Syria, Libya. So there were going to be these increasing wars. We could say US-led wars for Israel, wars for Israel. And of course, this is what is the big political issue now in the world, but especially in the United States, where people are saying, we've had enough of being exploited and having our riches and treasury and military capacity and our sons and our daughters devoted to wars for Israel, led by the United States. And if I look at what's happening right now, after all of these things are going on, and after there are these questions about, well, what about the Epstein class? What about Jeffrey Epstein and his whole operation of using, sex and taking pictures of it and having records of it so you can blackmail pedophiles. You can feed them what they want and then use it for blackmail. And, this raises the question, is Donald Trump, who, has a very bizarre and kind of aggressive and, well, frankly, kind of dangerous relationship with young people in sexual encounters. Was he, he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. To what extent is he right now subject to bribery? Uh, and is he protecting the Epstein class from uh, ramifications, and nobody seems to get charged for the Epstein crime. So this speaks of this relationship between the United States and Israel within this framework of Zionism, which the Zionist network, go back and forth across the countries, and the overlap between the countries. We've seen this build up to this, and this war of USA and USA and Israel on Iran. This is an expression of that history. It would seem. So, what are we going to make of that? Well, right now, what we're being told, Defense Authorization Bill 224, that we should combine the militaries of Israel and the United States. They should be the same entity, and combine the intelligence structures. And I guess the pressure is getting too strong, that people in the United States, the MAGA people, the others are saying, why? I thought you said you were going to do America first, Donald Trump, not Israel first and America last, America just as the tool of Israel. And so what do we learn? There's an effort to combine the militaries and the intelligence agencies even more closely, even deeply, more undercover within this Zionist network. And Thomas Massey is fighting that. Like, where are the people on the left who are, this is going to be a big fight. This is, it should be anyway. Of course, Thomas Massey, he couldn't run again because AIPAC spent $30 million to get him out of the running for being reelected to Congress. Imagine that. So, what we're dealing with is that the Congress of the United States are basically a bunch of, call them hookers, but I think it does an injustice to sort of honest sex trade workers. Like, they're bought and paid for because the murder machine, the terrorist entity of Israel, which does genocide, they've bought them. And it's just the odd person in the whole political system. Thomas Massey emerges as, the obvious case. Look at and look at Trump himself, how compromised he is. And is he who's he really working with and for? I mean, in his world, this merger of Israel and the United States under this umbrella of Zionism, this has gone forward. So anyway, these are the issues taking place now. So let's go back and remember that when the war on terror was getting going, and essentially the war on terror was to prepare people's mentality. It was primarily a psychological operation. So they would accept that, oh yes, we need to take care of these uh, Islamic jihadists. In 9/11, the day, I don't think we knew the word jihad. Most people didn't know the word jihad. There was, we were being introduced to a whole system. Much of this was fabricated. Now, who was doing this fabrication? Well, there's a Canadian called David Frum, and his mother was the host of a very famous radio show, public affairs show in Canada called Barbara Frum. As It Happens was the show, and Barbara Frum was the host name. And David Frum had a sort of literary career, and he went up in the Republican Party. And after 9/11, he wrote a book called An End to Evil: How to Win The War on Terror. And he was doing this book from in partnership with Richard Pearl. Richard Pearl was one of those characters going between Israel and the United States, having citizenship in both places, and dealing with this merger of Israel and the United States within the framework of Zionism. He was a cutting edge figure in that, as was David Frum. So David Frum and Richard Pearl in this book, imagine they've got the key. Just listen to us. We're going to end evil. Like the war on terror after 9/11. If you think your enemy is, usually you think, oh, the Germans were the enemy, the Poles were the enemy, the Chinese are the enemy. But war on terror isn't set up that way. It's, terror. You're going to defeat terror. Well, what is terror? It's kind of wide open. It's whatever you think it is. Like, what if you have a war on bad jokes? What if you have a war on too much farting? People who fart too much or something. I mean, ha- having a war on equality rather than making it at a certain people, then it sort of leaves it wide open that you can just change the enemy. You can just have a sequence of enemies going by, call it, and say, well, if they're enemies and they threaten us, they threaten us with terror, and we're going to eliminate terror. So this use of the word terror in the context of the war on terror, 9/11, the demonization of people, especially Muslim people, Muslim and Arab people. Of course, not all Arab people are Muslim. Some are Christians, some are Baha'i, some are communists. But the idea is most are Muslim. So the basic group that was targeted were Muslim. But Arabs were too, and especially one group of Arabs, the Arabs in a part of the world known as Palestine, the Palestinians. And so the Palestinians, by their very name, they serve as a reminder to the people trying to Israelify Palestine. It used to be called Palestine. Now they're trying to change it, and have been doing that since 1948 to build up a country, to expand the country. They want to expand the country into greater Israel. And so the people in the way of that, the Palestinian people, they are targeted, and they have been targeted since 1948. And there have been various assaults back in 1948. The effort was to push them out of the territory, to free up the territory for Jews, that had emigrated in from especially Europe, and would emigrate in from Europe, and maybe also from the United States, and also from Russia and such. This was anticipated. So this assault on the Palestinians, of course, is a key part of this. This particular group of Arabs identified with the lands of Palestine. So from the founding of the current incarnation of Iran that is in power now, in 1979, it was Ayatollah Khomeini who replaced the Shah of Iran back in 1979. Ayatollah Khomeini is, of course, a cleric, and so the decision was made to adopt a governing system in Iran. The Shah had cancer. There was a lot of hostility towards the Shah from some people, especially those who had been killed and tortured. It was largely Mossad running the security of the Shah. So the decision to change the government in Iran, it came to some extent from within the Iranians, but Jimmy Carter agreed to this, and then Ramsey Clark and Richard Falk, for instance, they interviewed the Khomeini, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, and now we have the Khamenei family. So it's just two names there, and they're very close. One is a Khomeini, and the one in power these days is a Khamenei, and his father was killed in the effort to sort of overthrow the government of Iran. And Trump had promised back on February 28th, when he gave a ridiculous speech, that the Iranian people were so angry and fed up with their government that all they had to do was give a little nudge, and that the Iranian people themselves would take over the government and put in place the son of the Shah of Iran. And this was rather ridiculous. So this uh, effort to retool Iran, which the United States was going along with when Khomeini came into Tehran. He flew in a big Air France 747. He came in with lots of journalists, and there was, quite a bit of agreement that this was the new leader, and that it wasn't a totally revolutionary situation. Indeed, at the Aspen Institute, there had been a lot of discussion about this, and people like Ramsey Clark and Richard Falk, they found that Ayatollah Khomeini and many of the people he was associated with, Shia Muslims, they had a kind of empathy as clerical people, as religious people towards the oppressed. And so Iran actually has reached out to a lot of oppressed people. Primary ones being the Palestinians. The Palestinians, from the beginning, 1979, Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, as it came to be called, uh, embraced the Palestinians, tried to protect the Palestinians, tried to represent in international affairs the interests and will of the Palestinians. They developed a series of allies throughout the Muslim and Arab world. The big ones being in Lebanon, Hezbollah. My first trip to Iran was in 2014, and then I was invited back a few times, by the government. And in 2019, the meeting took place in Beirut, and then we went to the south of Lebanon, and we were, north of Israel, and we got to meet a lot of people in Hezbollah, a very deeply organized people. And right now there is a war going on. Israel, which seems to need a constant war going on, because in order to keep Netanyahu as prime minister and keep him out of jail, because he's currently involved in criminal charges with the Israeli government that have criminal acts that they are in the midst of accusing him of. And Netanyahu is also wanted by the International Criminal Court, the ICC, based in The Hague, like the World Court, the International Court of Justice, the UN Court. The ICC is a little different. And imagine the Americans and the Israelis and others attack and sanction and threaten the people who are running this court, the ICC. I mean, it's pretty much known, if you're in an issue before the courts, you better not march over to the judge's house and start bashing on the door and threatening the judge. Except for the ICC, that's exactly what Israel and the United States are doing to the ICC. So, Netanyahu is a wanted man. He's in, he's being chased by the law. and he is, I'd say, the most notorious war criminal in the world right now. And he's deeply hooked into Trump and his whole administration. They have an operation going together, and it's a horrific situation. So the essence of this is that as this what they used to call the global war on terror after 9/11, as it comes to this fruition, that this war currently underway is what they anticipated when they were saying, well, this is the answer to defeating terror. This is going to defeat terror. This is the first item in this is what should you do to defeat terror, to defeat evil? Support the overthrow of the terrorist mullahs of Iran. Now, when I'm in Iran, I don't hear people talking about mullahs. When I people hear talking about mullahs, it's a kind of an insulting term. It doesn't sound very good. People call themselves imam, uh, the clerical people in the Muslim world. But if you want to an end to evil and how to win the war on terror, the first thing you've got to do is overthrow, basically kill, the terrorist mullahs of Iran. Well, I've met people in the Iranian clerical group, and there's the IR, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, the IRG, the IRG. I've also met people in that. Uh, the supreme leader, there is a kind of head of state in Iran, and it's a very interesting system. They do have, a democratic aspect, and given the lack of real democracy in the Western countries, I mean, we have elections and all, but the media is so manipulated, and the lies are so big, and the elections themselves are so unreliable that do we really, have a viable democracy in the United States, in Canada, in France, in Germany, all over the place? People are saying the people in power just don't listen to us and represent us. So the in Iran, they have elections, they have a parliament. Uh, the parliament responds to a president who is not a cleric, or may be a cleric, but that isn't the official element of his or her status. I don't know. Could you have a female uh, supreme leader? I guess you probably couldn't. But that will be something that, the Iran is a work in progress. And so this government of Iran, which we've been told is so terrible, well, this is the government that has been protecting the Palestinians. And to me, that is a huge thing, especially since October the 3rd, October the 7th, excuse me. And it seems that Netanyahu himself was very involved in not only letting it happen on October 7th, but being part of the process that just made it possible for people, Hamas and others, to leave the uh, walled city. Do people understand that Gaza, it's an enclave. It is a prison. It is a walled place, and you can't leave uh, or come in without the permission of the Israeli government. And so when October 7 happened, and people inside Gaza, Palestinian people inside Gaza, got out of Gaza and then sought to take hostages so that they could have some negotiating power with the Israeli government, because they have no status. It's an apartheid country. They don't have any vote in Israeli elections. Now, there is another group of Palestinians within Israel, going back to the founding of Israel, that were made Palestinian citizens from the beginning. So it's a complex situation with the Palestinians. But what we saw for 3 years after October 7 was a completely ruthless genocide of the, more people in that society. They're not armed, they're civilian people, and they were being randomly bombed, uh, carpet bombed, burned, shot at, starved, no water, no supplies. Their hospitals are destroyed. The people who work in their hospitals are destroyed. The journalists who are covering it are killed, so the messaging can't come out. I mean, when I read about what is said to have happened within Auschwitz, where uh, Holocaust, the Holocaust that sort of was the basis for founding Israel. I don't read about things as ghastly as, I don't find them bombing the hospitals of Auschwitz or something. Uh, so this whole situation of the Palestinians now being the victims of the people victimized by the Holocaust. And, what is the Holocaust? When does a genocide become a Holocaust? Does every genocide count as a Holocaust? There are many genocides that have happened over the course of history, especially to, small groups of indigenous peoples all over the world. And say you have, 300 people in your little group, and more than half of them are killed. Well, that's a small number of people killed relative to, these large numbers, but it's devastating for your own society. And when does a Holocaust become the Holocaust? And what is going to be made of the fact that, well, wouldn't the first thing you would be thinking of if you were looking at the future of Gaza and the future of that, beautiful territory uh, going into the sea, that there was all this talk about transforming it into sort of Trump Towers and casinos and a holiday resort, and Trump and his son-in-law Kushner and Tony Blair. It's going on now. How can we manipulate this to use this very high-end real estate in a sort of economically fruitful way for us, for the Trump family, for instance? What about something like a Holocaust museum for the Palestinians who are still suffering genocide? The murder still continues. And this is one of the things that Iran is beginning to do, is say, well, we're going to punish, we're going to try to stop the Israelis from killing Hezbollah, from invading Lebanon and killing thousands of random citizens in Lebanon. And certainly the murder of the Palestinian continues. The Palestinians continue. And of course, the very interesting thing, you hear this group Hamas, and there's a huge literature on who are Hamas. And definitely Netanyahu worked very closely with Hamas and used Hamas to prevent a unity of Palestinian people so that they could negotiate together. The Palestinian Authority, which is supposedly dealing with the West Bank, that's its jurisdiction, and Hamas is the jurisdiction of Gaza. And by having two parts of the Palestinian population represented in this way, he has been able to say, who am I going to negotiate? His career is, against a Palestinian state. He is totally hostile to a Palestinian state. His father, who worked with Jabotinsky, he talked about, an iron wall. He said, don't bother trying to negotiate with the Palestinians. He cited a lot of Indian people in America, and said, are they ever going to give up the fact that this is their native land, and are they going to make some kind of deal and accept the legitimacy that it's no longer their native land? They'll never do that. So this is the heritage. Jabotinsky is his line and founds Likud, Netanyahu is the head of Likud. But he's pulled to great extremes by Ben Gvir, Itamar Ben Gvir, and Smolrich, uh, Benzalel Smolrich, uh, extremists, just want to kill Arabs, want to kill Palestinians. So the difference of Israel and Iran towards the Palestinians is a kind of a marker that indeed Israel is, a genocidal state. It's hard to call it a state anymore. It's more like a terrorist entity. The head of Israel, and he's in deep water. He's in political dire straits. Who knows how his image is toyed with and what is really going on within the leadership of Israel? But uh, Netanyahu, who is, taking care of dealing with the media in the United States, and they're trying to regain sympathy from American people in the face of this outpouring of condemnation towards Israel and also towards the United States. And it's not just that the United States is complicit. I would say Netanyahu is every much that Trump it should be before the International Criminal Court himself, that he is deeply implicated now in the crimes of Israel, and it seems that this Israel, the statistics keep showing that within Israel, the Jewish Israelis, they're fine with the killing of Palestinians. They want to see more of it, faster happening. They're fine with going in and into Lebanon and trying to take over Lebanon. They're fine with building a greater Israel. So this country of Israel, but let's talk about this concept of Zionism, which is I noted it's a very powerful lobby. If you want to get ahead in the world, you better be friendly with Zionists. You don't want to be criticizing Zionists when it comes to, the financial world, the media world, the literary world, the academic world. If you want to get ahead, you better not be anti-Zionist. At least that's the way it's been these days. So what are we to make of Zionism? So the difference between trying to protect the Palestinians, trying to use your military efforts and capacity to offer that besieged group protection, trying to come to terms with what has happened. What are we going to do now? I mean, this to me is like the future history. It's important that we take grasp of this moment, that as the sort of culminating event in what they used to call the global war on terror, that since 2001 and really going back to 1979 when the Islamic Republic of Iran was created, in 1979 when the U.S. backed a big group of mujahideen, of Muslim mercenaries, and pointed them to oppose the puppet regime of the Soviet Union. And this was key to ending what was called the Cold War, when the Soviet Union ceased to exist. It seems to me that what is going on now with United States, Israel, and Iran is basically like the end of the Cold War, and we have this sort of reversal of roles where we see that Iran is actually kind of a rational country with a policy that is, has a humanitarian aspect to it, and seeks to protect people, whereas the U.S. Israel polity, which is sort of divided right now, there's instability. Maybe this is part of losing a war when the allies in the war turn on each other. Is that happening now, or do the Israelis and the Epstein clan and Netanyahu, do they have something so grave uh, over Trump that he's done something so terrible that they have the goods on him, they have the information on him, so they can bribe him? Anyway, what's going on with that U.S. Uh, Israel merger, this merger in Zionism, and what's going on with Iran and the emergence of Iran as sort of a very important Islamic country. Islam, the Iranians at the outset of after being attacked and menaced by an aggressive war. Let's remember that it's the USA and Israel that start the war, and starting a war is an aggressive war, and that is uh, a very high level crime. Aggressive war is an international crime. So Iran is trying to emerge and has to try to deal with Israel, which basically there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Israel wants Iran in its present form destroyed, obliterated, eliminated, so that the Greater Israel project can go forward with is Iran with its current orientation. As long as it's there, it presents this obstacle to the forward progress of the Greater Israel project. So how are we going to perceive of this right now? And I think it's important to be able to, see the history, see the past history, see the history that we're making right now. I'm trying to, find words and trying to show connections between the different elements of history so we can look into the future and conceive of our future history, and that we take advantage of what is going on right now and read it in a intelligent way, in an accurate way, and don't be just subjected to the overwhelming power which is retained of this media uh, you know machine, and this financial machine which is part of it, which is sort of well within the framework of Zionism, that is going to no doubt try to sell us on some kind of agenda which will keep Iran on the edges and keep the center of power where it has been with the United States and Israel. But they're looking bad, and they're exposed. And Donald Trump, is just sort of so sort of clueless, and so obviously lacking in basic education, and has a great difficulty sort of reading where he really is in the situations. Maybe he's suffering elderly disease, or whatever it may be. Anyway, we need to be aware of this moment, the possibilities, the opportunities of this moment, as well as the dangers of this moment, because it is a really dangerous moment. We're talking about nuclear questions. And, Trump is always coming out and saying, well, I don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons because I'm a hero, because I'm a friend with Israel. Well, Israel has, nuclear weapons, very controversial, stolen weapons that are totally outside the international rules, like the non-proliferation treaty. Like, Iran is a sort of model in keeping within the framework of people who can have nuclear power, nuclear energy. It was the USA that exported a program to do nuclear energy to Iran in the 1950s and the 1960s, when the Soviet Union and the United States were competing for nuclear supremacy, having the biggest bombs. And they were exploding these bombs right out in open space for a time. And the world was sort of getting completely, the thoughtful people, overwhelmed with, are we going to, going to just blow ourselves up with nuclear weapons? I remember as a child hearing about strontium 90, and this was radioactivity going into mother's milk that I was, I guess, getting. And uh, dealing with this nuclear issue and dealing with Israel, which is, got a Samson option. Israel is not a responsible, if you're going to say Iran is not a responsible person, that they shouldn't have nuclear weapons. Well, why? Because they're Muslim and they're terrorists. And, well, wait a minute. Who's the terrorist these days? And how is that term being used? So, and then nuclear energy and energy questions, it's not all about destruction and bombs. It's also a possible future for humanity. Like, it's very important. Will we continue with fission, or are we going to be able to do fusion, like ways to use nuclear energy to progress scientifically, civilizationally? Are we going to be able to realize that Iran embodies a civilizational contribution, that they are, highly scientific, highly practical, use their common sense, use their reason? You look at the United States and it seems to be having, Hegseth, it seems to have no plan, just randomly doing stuff with, well, we've got all these airplane carriers and we've got this and that. And what happened to the Gerald Ford, really, what's going on with military power in the United States, and how are we going to discipline and get out of this cycle where the war profiteers are just making money hand over fist and have control of the political system, it seems. So they continue to see that there is no sort of peace movement and putting highest priority on peace. So that's, I think, where I will bow out in this discussion, taking my little stand here as I look south at Chief Mountain towards Montana, as I take account of what's going on within Canada and all the interesting and provocative and menacing things going on within Canada. And I'll leave it at that. Over and out.